cloud.
Okay.
Hey, we did it. All right. So,
Awesome.
yeah, we did. So I'm gonna monitor the waiting room and just let more people in as they roll in. I was kind of joking that Moms for Mental Health is pretty much all moms. So I said, we run on our own time schedules, and then Dr. P said actually run on your kids' time schedules, which is truth and why half the time we're late. So welcome to our panel. We have Dr. William Pernell, or Dr. P, for those who are in the know. We have Ron Elfenbein, MD, and we have Marna Brickman, LCSW-C. We did have a fourth one, another therapist. She's going to be hopefully recovering from COVID very quickly, and she will send along some of the notes that she kind of wanted to share with us today, and I'll just share that with attendees after the fact. So we're going to be talking about keeping our sanity, addressing fears and health anxiety with COVID being part of our long-term reality. Dr. P's been talking extensively about this, I know. So we did have some questions that were submitted prior. Can you guys still? No, you can't see my screen if I do that, can you? That's okay.
We're seeing your screen.
Oh, is it like my messy desktop?
No.
Oh,
No.
it's still the image?
It's the image.
Yep.
Yes.
Oh, wonderful. That's exciting.
Look how you're learning right here.
I know, right? I'm learning. Look at that.
It's actually a great model, for the group. It's like, look, you could still be real and make a presentation and learn right in front of people. Like, life is messy. Allow that.
Life is messy. You're right. Thank you. Okay. So we are going to start with the questions that were pre-submitted, and then if we have time after, we will go ahead and take some more live questions from those who are attending. But first, do you all want to just take a moment to introduce yourself as our panelists? We can start with Dr. P.
Okay. It is a pleasure, right? So there's so much confusion about COVID. I'm Dr. Wayne Pernell. I go by Dr. P. My background, I'm known as the Breakthrough Success Coach. I am a relationship expert. I have 5 books out there, international #1 best-selling author. What else? TEDx speaker, done TEDx twice. My doctorate's in clinical psych, and for the past 35 years, I've helped accomplished leaders achieve greater, just truly exponential success in productivity, boosting their presence at home, and amplifying their effects in the community. So it allows them to live life fulfilled. I do want to say 2 more things, and that is the questions that you provided so far. They're awesome. I can't wait to talk about them. And to remember that coming through the last 2.5 years at this point, everybody has demonstrated resilience, courage, and to remember you still have a choice. And that will be a theme throughout my answers for the rest of this program.
Awesome. Thank you. Let's go with Marna.
Hi, everybody. My name is Marna Brickman. I'm a licensed clinical social worker. I work out of a small practice called Guiding Therapy. It's located in Annapolis, Maryland. Our areas of focus are motherhood issues. I love working with moms. We have a lot on our plate, and I like to help find balance in our lives and some joy and humor. A lot of humor it takes to be moms these days. My colleagues also work a lot with trauma, adolescence, anxiety, mood disorders. We do a lot here in Annapolis, and we are seeing people back in person again. And I love what Dr. P said about what it's going to take to get through the next couple of years, all that we've been through the past 2.5 years: courage, resilience, and I like to add humor and grace and patience too. So the questions that you submitted looked really interesting. I'm hoping for a great discussion. We don't have all the answers. We're struggling through this with you all, but we sure hope to find some guidance together and maybe some peace in our collective struggles. So thanks for having us, Jillian.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. All right, and Ron Elfenbein.
Hi, everybody. Thanks, Jillian, for organizing this. My name is Dr. Ron Elfenbein. I'm a board certified emergency medicine doctor. I trained at Johns Hopkins. I was the chief resident there. I went on to help design protocols for NASA to manage airway emergencies in space. I've done a lot of research for them. I worked extensively with the United States Secret Service. I'm an emergency room doctor. I also run First Call Medical Center. We've become the largest supplier of monoclonal antibody infusions in the state of Maryland, and we are the largest testing center in the state of Maryland for COVID testing by volume. And we have really reached out to the community to try to get as many people treated as possible for COVID, which is awesome that we can finally do that. And I have 4 children and a wife who practices medicine as well. So busy life, but we're all able to maintain our sanity, thank God. So hopefully we can help with some of these awesome questions you guys have submitted.
Thank you. And also, I really love your practice. I've been there a couple times because
Thank you. Thanks, Jillian.
and it makes it much less painful. Yeah, I'm glad you're there. All right. Well, thank you so much for all 3 of you being here. Let's just jump right. Ooh, I broke the chair.
Hey, Jillian, I have a question for you.
Oh gosh, yes, Dr. P.
Do you have other slides?
No.
I'm going to suggest that you quit screen share and put it on speaker view so that whoever's talking actually has, there you go.
Okay, awesome. And you can't see my messy desktop?
No, we can see your amazing, bright, shiny face.
Nice. Okay, awesome. I put makeup on for you guys. Can you tell?
You look great, Jillian.
Thanks. All right. Thank you, Dr. P, for keeping me on track. I appreciate it.
I've done this a time or two.
You're the pro. I'm just here to learn. All right, so our first question is something that I think a lot of us with school-age kids can relate to, and it causes a lot of stress, I know, in my home, and a lot of my friends who have kids kind of say the same thing. So one of our members is seeking advice for navigating the stress of maintaining safety protocols that are different from my 10-year-old son's friends' families and some of our relatives. It's hard on me and it's stressful for him to have that level of self-control required to do something like wear a mask when no one else is doing it, especially when I'm not there to supervise and hold the line for him. I feel like it's almost not developmentally appropriate to ask him to do this on his own. Does he have the executive functioning required to self-enforce uncomfortable limits when there is peer pressure to ignore them? Do we want to start just in that same order? So Dr. P?
I think it's a great question. Mike, I'm just noticing, am I coming up as central when I speak or no?
Just part of the panel, just part of the screen.
It's weird because it pops up, like I can see everybody else outlined when they speak, but not me. So
you have to adjust your own view as well. There's 3 dots that you can do, adjust. And there's a panel and speaker. So the user also has to do the same adjusting as the presenter.
Roxana, thank you.
You're welcome.
Look at experts in our midst. Awesome. All right, just put it to, I just put it to speaker for myself, but it's not showing that, so.
Yeah, I did it. It's on speaker for myself too now.
Right.
It's highlighting. I can see it highlighting you.
Is it highlighting me? Okay, I just want to make sure y'all can see me when I'm talking. Look, so it's a great question, getting back to it, like it's multiple questions. There's social pressure as part of the question. There's executive functioning as part of the question, and self-enforcement, right? So look, self-enforcement comes from understanding what the rules mean, right? So do 10-year-olds have the executive function and self-enforcement ability to not stick a screwdriver in a electrical outlet, right? Most of them, yes. Some of them, no. And it's hard to know. I mean, we saw 20-somethings doing Tide Pods. It's like, that's right. Do they have the executive function to understand the risk is a question. And the answer is yes, they have that ability. It does come down to 1 or 2 key things. One is we all desire to belong, right? And some of the other questions around anxiety that were asked are exceptional, and they tie into this because it's about the desire for safety and the desire to get along. And psychic safety, psychological safety is, will I be a member of this group or will I be ostracized? Will I be cut out? And so this is the discussion, right? Talk about really, like 10-year-olds have the executive function to be able to engage in conversation. So they don't have a perception of the giant world the way you do as an adult. And so they need that from you. So ask ask about your child's beliefs. Like, do they understand that how viruses spread, right? It's this invisible thing that we can all be very afraid of, or it's an invisible thing that has been around forever, and has gone through centuries, and various people have dealt with viri in various ways, right? So I think that's a big thing. So you don't want them hurting themselves intentionally. I think, to give an analogy, is the use of seatbelts, right? We ask them to wear seatbelts. We ask them to wear bike helmets. We're also asking them to wear masks, and that is for their safety and for others. And I think that if you focus also on benefit extension means this not only is for you, but it really is for the benefit of other people, right? So, so note that they may or may not become sick, but they could carry a virus that makes others sick.
Yeah.
And also, the end is in sight, right? It's been a long time. We're watching it shift from a pandemic to an endemic. And it's not a forever thing. It's just a little while longer thing. So those are the key points that I would say to that question.
Perfect. Thank you. I really love the focus on the empathy. It's not just you we're asking you to do this for, it's others as well. And I think a lot of times we underestimate the ability for children to think outside of their own egocentricity. I didn't think that
Benefit
was.
extension is a big deal, right?
Yeah.
It's it works wonders when you're talking about siblings, or look, if you have a virus that nobody can see, but you bring it to the grandparents, that's a big deal. So yeah.
Awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, Marna, what do you have to say?
I don't think I'm going to add anything to his response. It was pretty thorough, and I think there's plenty of other questions to get to. I don't want to reiterate what he said, but
Yeah,
I'm
let's switch up.
Mhm.
Awesome. Thank you. Dr. Ron, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I agree with what was said. I would just be careful with talking to your kids about the end is in sight and this is going to be over soon, because we've been hearing that for over 2 years now. So I happen to agree that that's most likely what's going to happen. But every expert in the world has been telling us, if you get the vaccine, you don't have to wear masks anymore. The end is in sight. You know, this is coming. The end is in sight. So I would be really careful about setting expectations, because we've seen this time and time again where the expectations haven't been met, and then you just lose credibility. So I would just be careful about that. But other than that, I totally agree with everything he said.
Yeah, that's a really great point. You know, kids don't like to be lied to, and even if we're not intentionally lying, if what we say turns out not to be the truth, we lose their trust. So that's a really good point.
Science evolves, right? It's like, and that's the other thing to have a conversation about. Great point.
Perfect.
Cool.
Our next question is one that I really think is super pertinent, because there's a lot of family divide happening, and especially, I mean, all families have conflict, but especially in families that have really been very close and very on the same page with things, COVID has been one of those things that has really caused a lot of division. So this question says, I feel a lot of resentment towards family members who are less cautious than us and criticize our level of caution behind our backs. I'm not sure how to deal with these feelings without straining the relationships more than they've already been strained, because cutting off contact with them is not an option. It has really affected my 11-year-old's trust in her family and has caused us as a family a lot of increased anxiety. Let's go ahead and start with Marna on this one.
That is such a great question. Impossible to navigate, it seems. I think you need to explain to them, just like with anything, our family has different rules than other families. Just like sleepovers are okay with some families, or different foods okay. Our family has different rules, and we try to adhere to our family's rules, what's best for us, and try not to judge other people and their decisions. So it's about really being clear what the family's decision is, trying not to judge other people, trying to be empathetic of other people's experience. It's a really great question to bring up, and I wish I had an easy answer. Just do this, this, and this, and everything will be fine. But you can't avoid your family forever. You can only discuss your experience and say that we don't want this to be divisive. We don't want this to be something that breaks our family apart. How can we get along with each other? How can we respect each other's opinion? Is it fear-based? Is it science-based? Is it, you know, what's driving their decisions? As long as you are communicating and trying to share where you are, that's really all we can do, and try not to judge people, because people have their own experiences. People have people in their family that are more compromised. So there's a lot of things and variables that are going into these decisions. And if we can just have a little bit of grace and communicate with people and step out of judgment, and try to let go of some of the fear. And remember that ultimately we're all in this together. We're all trying to figure it out together. There's no like, oh, we back when this happened in 10 years ago, this is how we fixed it. There's no frame of reference to get us through this. So we're figuring it out as we go. So I'd say grace, communication, patience, humor, all those things. And I'd love to hear what the other experts have to say about this question.
Perfect. Thank you. Dr. Ron, what do you have to add?
Yeah, that was really well said. And the only thing I would add really is just, you really got to respect what everybody else feels. Whether you agree with it or not is immaterial. If that's how they feel, that's how they feel. And I'll give you an example. You know, we were getting together for Thanksgiving at my sister's house, and my sister set down the rules. These are the rules that we're going to follow. And if you choose not to agree with those rules, that's totally fine, but you're not invited to this house. And you might disagree with that, but those were her rules. It's her house. And I completely supported what she said. Another family member we have, you know, totally things that they do are totally arbitrary, and there's no logic behind their choices, but it's still their choice. So whether they choose to, you know, engage in group settings or not, or whatever, that is up to them. And, you know, who am I to judge their feelings? Now, I may say, well, you're being illogical, and here's why. I'm perfectly free and right to say that, but I would never question their judgment or call them names or ostracize them because I disagree with them. I think that's really important. You know, people, we've seen this throughout our, look, I'm a huge pro-vax person, but there are people who choose not to get vaccinated. There are reasons why people have chosen not to get vaccinated. It doesn't make them a bad person. So we as a society have taken it upon ourselves to castigate these people and ostracize them because they choose not to get vaccinated. And I think that's a terrible thing. And I'm just picking one example, but you know, if just because you disagree with them doesn't mean you're right and they're wrong, or vice versa. So I think what Marna said was just respect other people's decisions and just be gracious about it.
Perfect. I really like that. The you know, holding your boundaries, respecting other people's decisions, but also not judging and realizing that we are going to have different views and beliefs, and you have to act within your own comfort. Dr. P, do you have anything to add to that one?
Yeah, I love the theme that's showing up. I think one of the things that we're seeing is that each household is developing their own rules. They do have their own way of operating in the world, and to be able to honor that and to talk about that. Also remember something big, and this was something that I learned years ago, and it's really served me, and that is that if you think of children as the barometer of the household, that they are going to pick up on your anxiety. So if you're in fear, they're going to demonstrate fear, and it's going to look to you like they are anxious, like they're fearful, when all they're doing is picking up on there's something wrong in the house. So you've got to be the beacon of, this is what I believe, other people believe differently. We can bring joy and grace and humor and all the things that Marna's talking about as well into the world. Also, remember that anxiety, fear, and guilt are imposed and sometimes self-imposed. And so the biggest point here is that what other people say behind your back, that's more a reflection of them. That's not a reflection on you unless you choose to accept it. Right? One of the, if I said you're a purple spotted mongoose and you were like, oh, this is horrible, but most people are like, what do you mean I'm a purple spotted mongoose? Like, if people call you a name, it's up to you to take it on. Well, you don't know what you're talking about. You're not following the science. It's like everybody's following a different kind of science, it seems. So recognize that anybody's comments behind your back are actually more a reflection of them than they are of you.
Right. Yeah, so there's not really an easy answer to this, but I think it helps to know that none of us are really escaping this unscathed. We're going to have kind of these arguments and this tension that arises, and there are things we can do to kind of just remediate it a little bit. Awesome. Third question. So this one, we got a lot of this variation of this question. So we kind of just put it into one. But it seems like a lot of people who used to really enjoy going out and hanging out with friends, they've gotten kind of stuck in this like comfort zone of like, well, I like being home. I'd rather be just, you know, hanging around my house and doing dishes or watching Netflix. When I get invited to go out, like I don't really want to. So how can we find ways to enjoy our life and get back into social activities when we feel like we're still living in constant fear? We know we crave connection, but sometimes it just feels like we'd rather be in our cocoon at home. So let's start with Dr. Ron on this one first.
Yeah, I think there's the law of momentum. So, if you are stuck in a dead end kind of, that's not a good way to say it, but if you're stuck in with no momentum and you're at home watching Netflix, like you said, it's very simple and very easy to just sort of keep the thermostat at that level, not engage in anything else. But I would actually flip it on its head and say, use this as a time to try new things. I mean, like, we just joined a bowling league. I took all my kids and we joined a bowling league together, all of us. Like, we're meeting new people. We're out bowling, and I mean, I bowled 10 times in my entire life. But we saw it and we said, oh my God, this would be something fun to try as a family. So I think I would flip it on its head and say, use this opportunity to try new things. And yes, rekindling those relationships that you have, the social relationships with your friends, is so important. Baby steps. I mean, you're not going to go necessarily from 0 to 60 in 3 seconds, but instead of going out for dinner, maybe go meet for coffee or go for a walk with them and say, hey, let's meet up at the park and we'll go for a walk outside where everybody can be comfortable. You don't have to worry about getting sick, that sort of thing. And remember too, that, what worth is life to live if you're not living your life, right? I mean, if you're sitting at home watching TV all day, I would argue to a great extent that you're not really living your life. You only have one life, you should live it. So you can live in fear, you can choose to live in fear, or you can choose to live your life and not be paralyzed by fear. And I think it's important from a scientific perspective to remember that, the data is excellent on survivability, certainly if you've been vaccinated. And there are treatments, both oral and intravenous treatments now. So your chances of catching and or dying from this virus are certainly from dying, are incredibly small, regardless of your age or comorbidities. I mean, obviously, the older you are, the more there is a risk to you. But if you're young and healthy, your risk of dying is infinitesimally small. And if you catch it, there's treatment options. So I would say really just try to re-engage, try to baby steps first. But you really have to bust out of that you have to start spinning the wheel, because otherwise it's never going to go. So that the law of thermodynamics, that that an object without motion tends to stay without motion. You have to start the motion. So you got to push that ball up the hill. You got to start moving it, and you got to start engaging.
Perfect. I love it. The baby steps is so important. It's like any goal worth reaching is usually worth breaking into smaller pieces first. Dr. P, do you have anything to add to this one?
Yeah, that's called chunking, which is great. And to overcome any kind of inertia, you chunk it down into smaller pieces. That's awesome. Dr. Ron's spot on this one. I would also just remember that fear exists in us. And if you shift that to, oh, I'm feeling afraid, if you shift that to, I'm being called to awareness, like the whole point of fear is to make us aware. Fear is all about safety and survival. And so it's about perspective at this point. And, are you doing everything to stay safe? Right. So are you wearing a mask? If you're in a public space, are you going out into open spaces and allowing yourself that freedom? Also, the research is showing us that if you spend about 10 minutes in nature, everything calms down. And it doesn't matter whether it's a nice summer or spring day, or the big storm that just came through. Get outside. Like that is over and over again being shown to produce very wonderful psychophysiological effects. And again, remember what you're modeling as the adult, right? So living in fear isn't living. We are meant to thrive. We as humans are meant to thrive. Survival. Can I just get through this day? That's actually a dis-ease. That is a dis-ease. Survival is a dis-ease. And so if you think of it that way, that thriving is what humans are meant to do. And how do we do that? We do that by connecting with others as one part of that.
Perfect. Yeah, connection's really important, and sometimes it's hard to get back into it, but just make that step. Marna, do you have anything to add?
I would like to add, because I wanted to just point out all the great things that the other doc said, but when you've been traumatized by the past 2.5 years events and you are feeling comfortable in your own home, it is hard to find the momentum to get out of the house. So I just really want to normalize what people are going through right now. It's been hard. We've been scared. We've been afraid of getting sick, seeing loved ones sick, knowing other people that have, like, we all have been collectively traumatized by the past 2.5 years. And sometimes staying home, doing dishes and watching Netflix is all we can muster. So I just want to acknowledge that sometimes you need help to get the momentum going. So if you need the help, get on a Q&A panel like this, talk to a friend, get into therapy. If medication's indicated for you for an antidepressant, that might be the time, because we've been through something the past 2.5 years none of us have ever been through. So it's not easy. It's not easy. And we are all collectively struggling. And I really just want to acknowledge that it's not as simple as just go out and do it. I'm not saying that's what the doc suggested at all. Like, we do need to get the momentum going, but it's hard. People have been stuck and scared for a long time. And sometimes you need other tools and you need help to get yourself unstuck and out of the house. So whatever tools you need that will work for you, use them, and don't be embarrassed to use them. Don't be ashamed to use them. Reach out to loved ones, reach out to professionals, get your vitamin D, get some sunshine, get a light therapy for your home. If you're not wanting to get outside right now, like you said, get out in nature for 10 minutes and get help. Use your people, whatever you can do. I just wanted to really normalize how hard it's been for everybody.
Hey, Jillian, can I jump in for a quick second?
Yes, please do.
I totally agree with what you just said, 100%. But I just want to put this into perspective for people, because I think, you listen to the media and the world will end tomorrow, and everybody, I mean, they're in the business to scare the crap out of people. That's really what they do. And that's what they do very well. And I want to put this into perspective. If I were to ask you, what is the most dangerous thing you're ever going to do in your life? For the majority of people, you know what the answer is?
Get in a car.
Get in a car, and you do it every single day without thinking about it. And if
Right.
you look to your neighbor as you're driving down the road, 90% of those people are not only just driving, they're driving while doing something else. They're either doing their hair, they're texting, they're doing whatever. That is infinitely more dangerous than catching COVID. And yet people do it, or dying from COVID, excuse me. Yet people do it without thinking. You do it 100 times a day and you don't even think about it. Just to put this into perspective. So again, the media is scaring the crap out of people, and it's making people paralyzed with fear. And it's an awful, horrible thing, when in reality, if you look at it, our brains don't work like this, but I'm trying to break it down for people as a risk assessment. Your risk of doing something like driving a car is way, 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 way higher than dying from COVID. So again, I think people need to just use your executive functions and think about it like that, because that will put it into better perspective for you and hopefully break some of that paralyzing fear people have had.
Perspective is everything. Well said,
perspective is everything.
Well said.
Yeah, I really appreciate you pointing that out. And I think it is important that if people are having trouble kind of gaining that perspective on their own, because it can be hard to get out of our heads, like Marna said, reach out to a therapist, reach out to a medical provider, reach out to your network, whoever you need to support you in this. I know, being on the side of things where I'm matching people with services, the amount of people right now who are looking for therapy who've never before been to therapy is incredibly high. So if you really need help kind of reframing and putting these things into perspective and getting over your fear and your worry and anxiety, no shame in seeking help.
And please turn off the news.
Take a break. Take a break. Watch some cartoons.
Yes, exactly.
Watch Encanto. Watch some Disney Plus. All right, thank you so much. That was a great discussion on that question. This next one is actually one that I'm really interested in hearing responses from. And I lost it. There it is. Catching COVID almost feels like a stigma. And like those of us who contracted COVID have somehow deserved it or done something wrong. How can we deal with this guilt, and how can we get others to stop viewing it in this way? There's so many people that I've heard saying, like, I'm so embarrassed that I caught COVID because I know people are judging me. So I guess the question's kind of twofold. Like, where is the stigma coming from, and how do we dismantle this stigma so that people stop feeling shamed for getting sick? Let's start with Marna. I think let's start with Marna.
Don't start with me in this one. I'm gonna pass.
Okay.
I think it's me.
Okay, let's start with Dr. P first.
If we're going in rotation, I think it's me.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's the thing. Stigma, again, is like accepting someone else's judgment, right? You're putting shame on yourself, or you're putting guilt on yourself. So here's something to think about. Guilt is paying for something twice.
Mm.
right? So you've already done something, and can you make reparation for it? Well, if you caught a cold, you'd go, darn it, I'm sick, I'm going to stay home. Awesome. You caught a virus that just happens to have gotten more news coverage than any other virus, right? Like when the flu was going through elder centers, we did see that on the news, but it didn't affect the mass population. Well, this is affecting everybody. So the biggest thing here is, are you being hard on yourself, right? Everyone I know has had or talks about it, and it's actually becoming more casual, like, yep, it got me, like that's actually becoming, well, it got me kind of thing. Look, I'll share that I am vaccinated, I am boosted, and I travel on airplanes. I go to meetings where people are vaccinated and unmasked. I go to places where there are public settings, and to my knowledge, I've not had it, but also I might have.
Mm-hmm.
We all might have. And so the stigma, I think, is really more self-imposed than anything else, right? So we need to, again, recognize that we're moving from pandemic to endemic. Will it last? Will it be here? I think that Ron brought up a good point when saying that we don't know how long it's going to be here, which is true. We don't know. The likelihood of it lasting and being some form of virus that's going to be around forever, it's pretty high. And like various strains of flu or the cold or other things, it's like, if you're sick, stay away from people. If you're seeing other people that are actively sick, stay away from them. So you're not bad, wrong, stupid, whatever, for having been exposed to something you can't see. It's like being in a car crash, right? You didn't intentionally wake up one morning and go, hey, I'm going to crash my car or get hit by somebody. You don't do that. So and the same for another example, like, if you ever cut yourself while you're preparing a meal, it's like that, you didn't set out to do that, right? You were being safe, and yet it was something that happened. So you heal, you become more cautious. And that's all fear again, right? So it's about stigma and fear are all lumped together here. And recognize, if you shift that, well, I'm afraid that someone's going to judge me, or I'm afraid of catching it. If you shift that to, how do I become more aware of what it is? And do I need to actually respond with a fight or flight mechanism that's going to, affect my adrenals? It's like, you don't. You're in more control than that. And so fear is there to keep you away and keep you aware. So recognize that awareness is part of just being normal, and live your life.
Right. Thank you.
Okay.
Dr. Ron, do you have anything to add to that as well? I mean, you see a lot of people who do come into you being sick. So do you have anything to add on this?
Yeah, I agree with what Wayne said, that it basically, the stigma is your acceptance of somebody else's judgment, or at least your interpretation of what you think somebody else's judgment is. Because other than on Facebook, I doubt people are pointing at you and openly and saying, hey, look, that person caught COVID, they should be ashamed of themselves. So it's more what you feel people are saying behind your back than what in reality may be happening. So I think you got to be aware of that. But also, there was a recent article about in the LA Times, I think, about people who caught COVID, who were unvaccinated, who deserved it, and who should die. And that's really what the article basically said. And I just find that sort of thing just completely reprehensible. I mean, I don't, I'm, as a medical professional, if somebody comes in and they're morbidly obese and they're clutching their chest and they're having a heart attack, I don't ask them, hey, how many hamburgers did you have on the way over here? Like, I'm going to treat you the same way. Why would I judge you? No one asked to have that heart attack. No one asked to catch cancer. No one asked to catch an infectious disease. Now, maybe they chose to live their life differently than I would have chosen how to live it, or maybe they were riskier than I would have been, but it's none of my business. Regardless, they're in front of me as a patient and they're hurting one way or the other. I'm going to treat them like a human being, and I'm not going to judge them for it. So I would say that we as a society need to be really careful about how we treat other people and the judgments we choose to make. And remember that, as Wayne said, like, again, a stigma is really just your interpretation of how you're internalizing what you believe somebody else may be saying about you. So who cares? Let it roll off your back. If you think that someone's making fun of you behind your back or whatever, well, maybe they're not really your friend, or confront them. But make sure that what you believe is the case is really the case, number one. And number two, if you don't believe that to be the case, then who cares? It doesn't matter. If they say, oh, that person's a jerk, and you're not a jerk, then what do you care what people say about you? So
Right.
I know that's easy for me to say, but I think we really have to be careful of that. And I think we have to be aware of that. And then the other thing is just, please don't judge other people. Don't judge the way they choose to live their lives. Don't judge the way the decisions they choose to make. They're making their decisions based on what they believe is best for themselves and their family. You may choose to completely disagree with them, and that is entirely your right, but it's entirely their right to choose to live their lives the way they want to live them.
Beautiful. I think that's really great. You had mentioned social media, and I think it's a little bit like you said, turning off the news. Like sometimes it's better to walk away from social media for a bit too.
Absolutely.
If you get caught up in
100%.
it. Yeah.
I just wanted to add two thoughts about that. Just that I think the fear of the stigma is lessened as we've gone 2.5 years and Omicron hit so many people. I think the stigma isn't as bad as it was when it first started 2.5 years ago. So hopefully that issue is going away.
Yeah. Yeah. Hopefully we're on our way out with that. Perfect. Thank you so much. The next question is really about children and their mindset. Oh, sorry. Did someone? Okay. I think I want to start with Marna on this one. I know that you probably deal with a lot of families who are experiencing this. So especially for kids in school and those who started school during the pandemic, this is their normal to them. So they've started to kind of just come to know anxiety as a norm. And wearing these masks as a norm is almost causing a little bit of fear. If I take it off, I'm going to get sick. So how do we help our children overcome the anxiety that has kind of just become part of their everyday life? Granted, they're growing up with COVID.
Oh, that's a great question. Like Wayne said earlier, you have to be the beacon of the tone of the mood of the household. If you're feeling less stressful, less anxious, your children will pick up on that. But as we know, it's hard to avoid anxiety during this time. So if you can teach them how to minimize the impact the anxiety has on them, if they have coping skills, if they have breathing techniques, mindfulness, exercise, talking about it, putting a number to it on a scale of 1 to 10, how anxious are you today? If it was a monster, what would the monster look like? Let's talk about it. You have to really address the anxiety and let them express what they're feeling so that they are able to minimize the impact it has, because it's going to be there, even if you try to manage it yourself. And I think, again, I'm going to say it again, because I'm a therapist. If talk therapy is something that would be helpful for your family or your child, I would get them into therapy. I would get them some tools, coloring books, journals, music, yoga, meditation, all these things. You can teach them a 5-minute breathing exercise that they can do anytime, sitting in their classroom if they're feeling it, on the bus, feeling it. They can access these tools that would be helpful for them. And if they learn now as young children, they're just set up for the rest of their life to be able to manage anything that comes their way.
Right. Yeah, I mean, anxiety is part of life. So so learning those coping tools is really important. Dr. Ron, do you have anything to add to this one?
I think Marna said it pretty well. I think as an ER doctor, like, I kind of feel like, to some extent, like the captain of the ship. I mean, if you're the cat in the Navy, if you're the captain of the ship, or an ER doctor, and there's a major trauma coming in, regardless of whether you know what to do or not, you have to play the part, and you have to look like you know what you're doing. I'm not saying that you take that to the ultimate extreme and to the detriment of other people, but you have to be the one that's in control and that's projecting that image of, I know what I'm doing, I'm in charge, and I have the situation under control. And if you lose that, then you're absolutely right, Marna, that your kids are going to pick up on that like in a heartbeat, and they're going to feed off of that. So you have to maintain that internal discipline of yourself, even if you have to say, excuse me, I'm going to go up to my room for 5 minutes and scream into a pillow or whatever, or talk to your therapist, whatever you need to do as an individual. But as the adult in the room, so to speak, when you're talking about your kids, you really have to project that image that you are in charge of the situation and you understand what's going on. And by all means, you should talk to your kids. You should be open with your kids. You should explain what the worries are, why it's not necessary to worry. And remember, kids are a lot smarter than we give them credit for. So I would say talk to them like a human being, and treat them like a human being, and explain to them and ask them to explain back to you, so that they're really involved in this, because that'll help tremendously.
Great. Dr. P, any thoughts?
Yep, it's a great question. We've had 2 years of teaching our kids to be on high alert. And so I think we really need to be paying attention to that. Look, the rule here is you're going to get more of what you focus on. And that has to do with their behavior, that has to do with any emotion that they choose to express. And so when you focus on, well, anxiety, it's like, it's scary out there. Well, what else is there? Like, again, back to resilience. If you wind back the clock for yourself 2.5 years ago, and I said to you, hey, every day that you wake up, you're not going to know what the rules are. You're going to go, what? Right? But every day for the past 2.5 years, even for those of us that have lost people along the way to this disease, we've bounced back. And every day for the last 2.5 years, we've demonstrated courage because we've stepped into the unknown. And I think if you focus on, look how resilient you are, look how resilient we are, look at the courage you've demonstrated, and here's where your power comes from. And this goes for parents, and it goes for parents talking with kids, and that is, your power comes in choice. And the more you have awareness of your choices, the more powerful you become in your own personal space, right? The whole thing about choosing your power, my first book, was about how do you find your voice? How do you find your space? How do you step in and really own that? And so teaching kids that they have the ability to make choices, right? And you focus on that instead of, isn't it scary out there? It's like, yes, the world is scary, but it's also a beautiful place. It's an amazing place. It's a place of adventure. Let's make it that, right? So I'd bring it back to, again, we're resilient, we're courageous, and man, do we have choices? Let's go. Risk well is the term I use.
I like that.
I wanted to add, that was also powerful what you said, Wayne. I really loved the way you presented it. I just wanted to reiterate one more thing is, when we're talking to kids, what's so important to them is to know that they're not alone. And to normalize what they're going through. Everyone is experiencing this. Your friends feel this way, because they just feel so isolated. They're the only ones that have this fear. They're the only ones that are thinking this. So if you can just normalize it as a family, normalize it for the children, let them know they're not alone, that goes a long way, along with courage and power and choice and resilience. All those things are so important. Well said. Well said.
Thank you. I hope we get to some of the questions in chat also. There's some good ones coming in.
Yeah. So we have 10 minutes left, and I think dropping things. I think the one question that was left, I feel like we've kind of answered it, the ones that were pre-submitted, and it's really, how do we accept COVID as part of our long-term reality and continue to live our lives as normal as possible? I feel like with the answers that we've been getting, we've kind of covered that a lot already. Are there any thoughts on that before we move on to the ones in chat? Okay, good. Yeah, I feel like the answers that we've gotten so far have been really well-rounded. Okay, so yeah, let's move on to the ones in chat. Holly says, I have driving phobia on top of COVID anxiety. So what's your advice for agoraphobic tendencies? I know there's a couple of our group members who definitely struggle with this. So let's start with, do we want to start with Dr. Ron on this one?
That's a tough one. I would say number one, obviously seek professional help. It sounds like this person really does need professional help, and that's not a stigma. That's not something bad. There's nothing wrong with that. Agoraphobia is a real thing, and that's something that you definitely need to take seriously and not ignore and seek help for. That would not be something that I would necessarily help somebody with. That sounds like more like Marna's
right.
Tree, but I definitely think find a therapist that you like, that you can talk to, or a psychiatrist, and definitely engage with that individual. But you have to take that seriously. That is something that you definitely want to look at and get professional help for.
Excellent. Let's bounce to Marna on that one. Have you treated this? Do you have experience with this, Marna? What advice would you give?
I don't have a lot of experience with agoraphobia, actually, but I know that there are therapists who work with it. I know sometimes medications indicated for this anxiety, something to look into. Wayne, do you want to address anything that you might have experience with?
Yep. Anti-anxiolytics are really actually very effective for this. Also, I mean, you each are talking about seek professional help. Absolutely. Know that you're not alone. Know that agoraphobia is a thing. And one key thing that I would just say that overarches all of this is watch your personal pronouns. Or it's like we have a tendency to say my disease, my cancer, my cold, my anxiety, and it's like it's not a pet. If you can use the word the, right? So it separates you from it, and it allows you to dissociate from dragging it with you everywhere you go. It's like, oh, the anxiety showed up again. Versus my anxiety. It's like, no, we've stopped care and feeding of the anxiety. It is separate from you now. So the anxiety, the cold, the COVID virus, right? And so it's really important, I think, the way we talk to ourselves, that you pay attention to the language you use.
Perfect. Thank you so much. That's really important. And I do just want to mention again that this is actually a very common thing in our group in Moms for Mental Health. So please know, Holly, you're not alone in this. And if you want to reach out, I know you have in the past, but please continue to reach out. There is support there within the group from peers, but then also if you need help finding external services as well, we're definitely here for you on that.
Good. That's
good. Okay, so our other question in chat, I am high risk and have chosen to stay home as much as possible. As a family, we've made the decision that people are not welcome inside our home for the time being. We are struggling with how to react to people that are taking offense to not being welcome inside. What is the best way to let people know that it's not that we don't want to see them, just not inside? Let's go ahead. Yeah, let's go to Dr. P on this one. I feel like you've got a lot to say.
Okay. So the biggest thing again is around framing and your language. You're not welcome inside. All people are going to hear is you're not welcome, F you. And I think it's the same way that when businesses list all the days that they're closed or the hours that they're not available, those are the things we focus on. And so really the language is, oh, we would love to meet with you outside. We'd love to have a communication with you on Zoom. We would love to, like, when are you available versus, again, I think that this is, it's reasonable to be fear-based in that you are high risk. I think that the language that you use is, because this is a high-risk household, we are looking forward to having a conversation with you or connecting with you in a safer space. We're not accepting visitors at this time in our house. And I think accepting versus welcoming is very different in terms of language as well. So I think you're on the right track. I just really would love to know that you're going to re-message how you do welcome people into your lives.
That was great. Thank you for that. Marna, do you have something to add?
Perfectly said, Wayne. Yep.
Thank you.
Dr. Ron?
Yeah, it was very well said. I think the other thing you could do is you could, under your terms, set up like a outside space where you can meet people. So if you have a fire pit or something, you can set chairs that, you don't want moved, for example, to anchor them into the ground. So that way when people come, they know that you have to sit X number of feet apart. And that way you can still engage with people, but just explain to them, like Wayne said, that because you're high risk, the only way to interact with people is this way. If you choose to do that, I'm just sort of giving you a way to take baby steps to getting back to normalcy or some semblance of normalcy, if that's what you choose to do. Otherwise, you shouldn't feel bad about it. You just have to be careful, like Wayne said, how you message that, because you don't want to offend your family and your friends. I was just giving an example of how you could still engage with them on your terms instead of other people's, or, say, hey, let's meet at the park and again, go for a walk, or we'll meet at the, at the lake and we'll skip rocks or something. Whatever the case may be, on your terms, not on their terms.
Yeah.
Perfect. I really like that the anchoring the chairs into the ground. It just kind of made me laugh because like whenever we put chairs out for the kids outside and they're like distant, give it 5 minutes and they're all on top of each other.
Right. That's
Yeah.
true. That's exactly right.
That is true.
Right. You got to either make them really heavy so they can't move them or anchor them into the ground.
Yeah, no, I thought that was really great. That's a good point. Do we have any other questions from our attendees right now who'd like to kind of speak up? Feel free to unmute or drop in the chat.
Can we
Perfect.
talk about how people can reach us? I'd love to
Yes,
know
that's what I was
more.
gonna.
Good.
Oh,
Oh,
solid, strong points today. Well worth the time. Certainly will spark additional conversations in our home. Thank you guys for your insight in this. I will be trying to be aware of my verbiage when letting them know our boundaries. Ron, thank you for the outside ideas. Perfect. This really has been some extremely valuable information. And like I said, I'm happy that we recorded this. I know there's a bunch of our members who were not able to attend today, but who were really eager to hear your messaging. So yes, please. Oh, how do we keep resiliency going? This might be one you can try to cover real quick if you want to when you're letting people know how to contact you. But we might just be able to kind of just give contact information and let people reach out if they want to hear more from you guys. So, Dr. Pernell. Oh, that sounded so weird. I never
right.
call you that.
You just asked for my dad.
Ooh, yeah, like I said it and I was like, "Hey, that's not I've never said that before ever." Dr.
Right.
P.
Yeah.
Any final comments? Please let people know how to reach out to you, how to get in contact.
Yep. I would love it if you'd visit my website, waynepernell.com. There's all kinds of free stuff for you. I do a weekly blog. I do a weekly podcast. I have a download of one of my best-selling books, and I have a masterclass for free on powerful presence that is good for the whole family. So all of that is at waynepernell.com. The idea of keeping resiliency going is recognize that you've done it, and that it's like I wake up, for example, the first words out of my mouth are thank you. So I start my day in gratitude, and gifting others or lifting others is a great way to actually remember that you're alive and that this day matters not just to you but to other people. And so with that, I will reiterate, spell my name right and you'll get to my website and you get a bunch of free stuff. And it really is a pleasure to be here. It really is a pleasure to be here. I believe that everybody's going through something. We're not all in the same boat, but we are all in the same storm. And I think it's really important that we recognize that. So just keep it going and reach out if you'd like.
Thank you so much, Dr. P. Great insight as always. Marna,
All
final
right.
thoughts and how to
I have to
contact
say,
you.
I've taken notes from Ron and Wayne's comments today, so I got a lot out of it as well. Thank you both. It's been great to be part of this conversation. It's so important. And just reach out. I'm a local in Annapolis. The practice is right off of Bestgate Road. We are seeing people in person. Reach out, guidingtherapy.com. And I start my day with gratitude too. And I say the keys to sanity: acceptance and gratitude. If you find yourself struggling, you don't have to like something to accept it, but acceptance and gratitude are the keys to sanity. And I look forward to hearing from all of you. Jillian, thank you for arranging it. Ron and Wayne, it was a pleasure being on a panel with you.
Cool question, Marna. Do you have couples therapy openings?
Yes.
Perfect. Thank you. That was from the chat.
Oh, God. Thank you.
Oh, wait, I just said that out loud and then I was like, wait, my husband's gonna see this and be like, where did that come from? Okay, Dr. Ron, final thoughts on how to get in contact.
Yeah, and Jillian, thanks for organizing this, and it's a pleasure to meet everybody, and the other two panelists, Marna and Wayne. Great talking with you guys and listening to your perspectives. I think a couple things. One is your state of mind, and remember that you're in control of that to some extent. I mean, obviously, if you have chemical imbalances and DSM-4 diagnoses, that's a little bit more difficult. But if you don't, your state of mind, you can affect that. So if you wake up and you say, "Oh man, I'm an introvert. I'm never going to talk to other people," you know what? You're never going to talk to other people, and you're going to be introverted. If you wake up and you say, "I'm a happy person, and I feel happy today, and I'm going to be happy today," data shows that you can make yourself feel happy today. And I think that that's really important. And I think setting goals for yourself that are achievable. So, if you've been completely befuddled with fear for this last 2 years, the goal of going to the ice skating rink and skating with everybody is not a realistic goal. It's not going to happen tomorrow. But if you say, I can meet with my friends and go for a walk, that is a reasonable goal. So you have to set reasonable goals and reasonable expectations of yourself. Otherwise, you're never going to get out of that funk, and you're never going to grow. so I think that that's the key to one of the keys to resiliency is setting achievable goals that you can do and keeping your eye on the prize that, you know, if you want to be able to go out for dinner with some friends, that's the goal. Okay. It's not going to happen tomorrow. I got to baby steps to get there. And, you know, just remembering that you don't want to make other people feel bad. You don't want to shame other people, just like you don't want to be shamed. So please don't judge others for their choices and just be accepting of others and accepting of what their choices are.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I really appreciate all three of you. Oh, Dr. P has a heart. We love you too.
Adorable. Oh my
That's
gosh.
so cute.
How about mine? Can you guys read this?
Relax, we're all crazy. It's not a competition. That's so funny. I love it. This was so great and such awesome information. So I will, as soon as I stop the recording, this will start downloading, and I will upload it to Moms for Mental Health, the Facebook page. I will put it on our blog and website as well, so you'll be able to see it there. And we'll send it out to our mailing list. So please feel free to share it with others. I think this, I just read the word relationship, and I was about to say this relationship is valuable. This information is extremely valuable. So thank you all. And please, anybody who wants to connect, please reach out to Marna, to Dr. P, to Dr. Ron. They are truly a wealth of information. Thank you all. Have a good
Everybody.
Good Sunday,
It's a
everybody.
pleasure.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Such a pleasure.
Nice to
Thank you,
you.
Gillian.
Bye.